The pre-dawn chill of the Masai Mara held the scent of dew-kissed grass and distant wood smoke as Kyle Murayuki, lens primed, silently tracked Simba Mbingu. Kale, a veteran wildlife photographer whose work transcended mere aesthetics, was immersed in a critical conservation study documenting the magnificent lion's every nuanced move. Simba, a prime male with a mane like a sunburst, carried the weight of his lineage and a sophisticated research collar, a shimmering band of technology around his powerful neck, vital to understanding his pride's dynamics. A single gunshot tore through the fragile serenity of the awakening savannah. It was a flat, brutal sound, utterly alien to the symphony of the wild. Kel's heart lurched. Through his telephoto lens, he saw Simba Mbingu falter, then collapse, a dark stain blossoming on his flank. The research collar, designed to protect and inform, now glinted malevolently, a beacon for his demise. Poachers. The word was a bitter taste in Kale's mouth. Beside him, Juma Kamani, a tracker as stoic as the acacia trees, was already on the radio, his voice grim, dispatching rangers. Kyle knew the grim protocol that would follow. A badly injured predator, especially a lion, meant euthanasia, a swift, merciful end, but an end nonetheless. It was a harsh reality he'd witnessed too many times, each instance leaving a fresh scar. Minutes later, the dust plume of a land cruiser marked the arrival of Mzi Kiprop and his rangers. Their faces were etched with the familiar weariness of those who fought a losing battle against human greed. Mzi Kiprop, a man whose eyes held the wisdom of decades spent in the bush, surveyed Simba's wound. His nod was almost imperceptible, yet it carried the finality of a death sentence. Rifles were unslung, their cold metal catching the burgeoning sunlight. Then, from the direction of the nearby village, a small figure emerged. It was Zawadi, barely 10 years old, trailing behind B, Wende, the village elder. Zawadi's gaze was unnervingly fixed on the fallen lion, a preternatural calm radiating from her. There was no fear in her eyes, only an intense, unwavering focus that seemed to bend the very air around her. The Mzi Kiprop, accustomed to strict boundaries, moved to intercept them, but Zawadi's silent, unblinking advance commanded an inexplicable halt. He simply stopped, his hand hovering over his rifle, his brow furrowed in confusion. Just as the silence stretched taut with the unspoken command to end Simba's suffering, another vehicle screeched to a halt. Sayed Ali, Duket and Chebet's assistant, tumbled out, looking flustered. He called out, his voice hoarse, "Wait! Duket Chebet's orders. Do not proceed." A collective gasp rippled through the small group. Duket Chebet, the renowned wildlife veterinarian, was rarely seen in the field, and her direct intervention was unprecedented. Said Ali then added, almost as an afterthought, "She asked for Zawadi." The air crackled with disbelief. Zawadi? The child? Under Diktan Chebet's explicit, unusual instructions, Sayyid Ali began to apply a crude dressing to Simba's wound. Zawadi, with an uncanny composure that belied her years, knelt beside him, producing small, carefully wrapped bundles of Mwende's traditional herbs. Her small hands moved with intuitive grace, assisting Sayyid Ali in the makeshift treatment. Kale, camera still raised, felt a disquieting chill. Her movements were not childlike fumbling, but precise, almost knowing. What truly baffled Kyle was Simba Mbingu himself. The magnificent predator, severely wounded, lay with a strange, almost organized calm. His labored breaths were the only sign of his agony. There was no thrashing, no guttural roars of pain or fear, only a quiet endurance, an anomaly for a wild, wounded animal. It was as if he understood, as if he consented to Zawadi's touch. As Kyle zoomed in, framing the scene, a chilling detail caught his seasoned eye. The poacher's shot was not the haphazard, desperate attempt of a trophy hunter. It was unnervingly precise, aimed to incapacitate, not necessarily kill immediately. A sudden, cold thought formed in his mind. Was Simba's research collar not just a marker for study, but a target? Was he marked for something more sinister than just his magnificent mane? Kale's fingers hovered over the shutter release. The ethical dilemma was immense. Documenting Zawadi's non-protocol involvement, a child using traditional medicine under the unprecedented instruction of Dukat Chebet could shatter careers, ignite scandals, and irrevocably damage the fragile trust built within the conservation community. His duty as a documentarian clashed violently with a growing sense of dread, a premonition that this was not just a poaching incident. Why her? Kale muttered, turning to Juma, his voice barely a whisper. Why risk this for a lion already condemned? Juma, his eyes fixed on Zawadi, offered a cryptic, almost weary reply. There are things about Zawadi, Mr. Kayel, that defy simple explanation. The long, arduous journey to the rehabilitation center was a blur of dust and hushed urgency. Simba Mbingu, sedated but still immense, was carefully maneuvered into a specialized transport cage. At the center, Dukan Chebet herself oversaw his arrival, her sharp eyes scrutinizing every detail. To Kayel's astonishment, she praised Zawadi's initial ministrations, noting the unexpected efficacy of the traditional herbs in stabilizing Simba's condition. Her application bought us crucial time, she admitted, her tone measured. The anti-inflammatory properties are undeniable, almost scientifically precise in their effect, drawn by an irresistible pull, and Dukanat. Chebet's cryptic invitation, Kale agreed to continue documenting Simba's recovery. Her parting words resonated with him. This story has many layers you have yet to uncover, Mr. Murayuki. It was less an invitation, more a challenge, igniting a spark of suspicion within him. Back at the ranger station, Juma, usually taciturn, offered a rare glimpse into Zawadi's past. He spoke of her early years, marked by an unusual quietness and an unsettling affinity for the wild. She was always different, Juma explained, his voice low. The animals, they just respond to her. Some in the village called it a blessing, others a curse. She was ostracized by many, seen as too close to the wild, almost not human enough for their comfort. He painted a picture of a child often alone, understood only by the creatures of the bush. Duketa Chebet, observing Zawadi's subtle interactions with Simba, later elaborated on her apprenticeship with the child. Zawadi possesses an exceptional observational intelligence, the doctor explained, her voice tinged with a respect Kale rarely heard her afford anyone. She doesn't just see animal behavior, she reads it, instinctively understanding their subtle cues, their unspoken needs. It's a profound ability, something science can barely quantify. The first unsettling crack in the veneer of a standard rescue mission appeared during a routine check of Simba Mbingu's research collar. Said Ali, ever diligent, called Kayel and Diktan Chebet over to a monitor. The biodata stream, usually predictable, displayed an unsettling anomaly. Patterns in Simba's metabolic rates, cellular regeneration, and even some neurological activity didn't align with typical lion physiology. It's off, said Ali murmured, his brow furrowed. Like he's operating on a different biological frequency, something unnatural. Kyle, reviewing the hundreds of photographs he'd taken since the incident, now saw unsettling details he'd initially dismissed. The poacher's approach wasn't just calculated, it was almost choreographed, too efficient for random opportunists. The precision of the wound was surgical, and then there was the subtle, almost iridescent gleam on Simba Mbingu's fur in certain lights, a fleeting visual distortion Kyle had attributed to lens flare or dust. Now it seemed like an intrinsic quality, something alien. Zawadi, a constant presence, moved with a quiet purpose. She would arrive, often unannounced, carrying small bundles of specific herbs, intuitively sensing Simba Mbingu's exact needs before even the veterinarians could articulate them. Her understanding of the medicinal properties, the precise dosage, and the method of application were far beyond her years, defying any logical explanation. The most profound phenomenon, however, occurred within Simba's larger enclosure. He became agitated, pacing restlessly, his magnificent head low, refusing the carefully prepared food offered by the center's experienced staff. But the moment Zawadi's small shadow fell across the threshold, a subtle shift occurred. Simba's agitation vanished. He would lie down, his eyes following her every move, the wildness in his gaze replaced by a strange, almost trusting placidity. It defied every tenet of standard animal psychology KL had ever learned. Duketa Chebet, examining Simba's latest diagnostics, voiced the growing scientific quandary. His genetic markers are robust, she told Kyle, her voice hushed. More so than others in his lineage, there's a resilience here we don't fully understand. The biodata anomaly from Simba Mbingu's collar, combined with Duketa Chebet's observations, painted a disturbing picture. It suggested an unnatural element, perhaps a unique genetic strain or a response to an unknown environmental factor. The chilling implications settled over Kyle. The poachers might not have been sent for a trophy. They might have been sent to retrieve Simba himself or to extract information, possibly even genetic material from him. Kyle felt a growing unease, a cold knot tightening in his gut. His instincts screamed that this wasn't just about conservation anymore. The layers Dikati Chebet spoke of were beginning to peel back, revealing something darker, more complex. He struggled with an agonizing internal conflict. Should he investigate deeper, risking his reputation, his access, perhaps even his safety for a truth that felt dangerous? Or should he simply document a story he knew with chilling certainty was far more intricate than anyone, save perhaps Zawadi, understood? The fragile calm at the rehabilitation center was shattered by another urgent call. A new poaching incident, more brazen this time, targeting an elephant herd in the very same area where Simba and Bingu had been shot. The news sent a ripple of grim resolve through the staff. Reserve resources, already stretched thin, were now pushed to their breaking point. Most of the experienced personnel, including Dukenta Chebet, mobilized quickly, leaving for the crisis zone. They left behind a skeletal crew. Said Ali, 2 junior assistants, KL, and the quiet, ever-present Zawadi. Days bled into a tense routine. Kyle, camera always ready, documented Simba Mbingu's slow, agonizing physical therapy. The lion, still favoring his injured flank, moved with a majestic, albeit pained, grace. His raw power was undeniable, yet Kyle continued to observe the unique dynamic when Zawadi was near. Simba's responses to her presence were consistently different. A relaxation of his musculature, a softening of his fierce gaze, and almost domestic compliance that defied the wildness of his nature. Then, a flicker of an incoming message caught Said Ali's attention on a crackling satellite phone. It was delayed, garbled by increasing atmospheric interference, but the message was clear and urgent. Jukanan Shebey's team was stranded overnight. Severe weather had descended rapidly, making travel impossible. They were isolated. As if on cue, the sky above the savannah began to bruise. Heavy, oppressive clouds rolled in, turning the vibrant afternoon into a premature twilight. A violent storm brewed with unnerving speed, the wind whipping into a frenzy, threatening flash floods and severing the already fragile lines of communication. The remote rehabilitation center, usually a sanctuary, began to feel like an island, cut off from the world. A sharp, thunderous crack ripped through the howling winds, louder than the thunder. It was the sickening sound of timber rending. An ancient acacia, weakened by years of drought and now assaulted by the tempest, finally succumbed, crashing down dramatically. It breached the eastern perimeter fence with a sickening groan of twisted metal and splintered wood, creating a dangerous gaping vulnerability in the center's security. Panic began to set in, not just from the immediate threat of the storm, but from a more insidious dread. Mwende, who had reluctantly accompanied Zawadi to the center and was now trapped by the intensifying storm, rushed into the small, dimly lit staff quarters. Her face was a mask of terror. "Zawadi, she's gone," she cried, her voice barely audible above the storm's roar. "She's not here," said Ali, already frantic. A chill of dread running down his spine, raced to the control panel. His eyes widened in horror. The status light for the maintenance access door to Simba and Bingu's high-security enclosure, usually secured with multiple locks and redundant systems, glowed an ominous, steady green. Unlocked. "She's in there with Simba and Bingu," said Ali, choked out, his voice a strangled whisper of disbelief and horror. "Inside the enclosure." Kale's blood ran cold. The implications were horrifying. A child, alone with a powerful, wounded, wild animal in the middle of a raging storm, a breached perimeter. "We have to get her out," Kale shouted, his own voice urgent, slicing through the rising panic. "Now, it's too dangerous." Later, after the immediate chaos of the storm had passed and the initial shock began to subside, Kyle, still reeling, went to inspect the breached fence for photographic evidence. There, partially obscured by the fallen branches, he found it. a strange, almost invisible filament trap. It wasn't a standard poacher's snare designed to maim or kill for meat or ivory. This was different, woven from an unnaturally strong, nearly transparent material designed for containment, for ensnaring rather than slaughter. It suggested a deliberate, sophisticated attempt to breach the center's security, not a random act of nature. The falling tree, the storm, the unlocked door, it all felt too convenient. KL felt a sickening lurch in his gut. The conspiracy theories, once abstract, were now taking tangible, terrifying shape. He was torn, agonizingly so, between the primal urge to protect Zawadi from an unthinkable danger that now felt far more insidious than a wild animal, and his duty to document this highly dangerous, unethical breach of protocol. Exposing this could blow apart everything, but it might also be the only way to unearth the deeper, darker truth he now suspected was at play. Through the reinforced glass of the observation deck, Kael, Saeed Ali, and Bai, Mwende watched in stunned, terrified silence. Inside Simba Mbingu's high-security enclosure, amidst the fury of the raging storm outside, Zawadi sat calmly, cross-legged on the damp earth. The rain hammered against the roof, and lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating the scene like a strobe. Simba Mbingu, immense and powerful, was alert but not aggressive. His amber eyes, usually filled with the untamed fire of the wild, were fixed on Zawadi with an unnerving intensity. She spoke to him in soft, melodic tones, a language Kael couldn't understand, but which seemed to carry an ancient resonance. She slowly placed small, fragrant bundles of herbs and carefully portioned food near his massive paws. It was an act of unimaginable trust, a scene so profoundly dangerous yet so oddly serene that Kael's breath hitched in his throat. Said Ali, his voice a trembling whisper, confirmed their worst fears, yet offered a glimmer of understanding. She's administering medication, he stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief and relief. Using her presence to soothe him, he was becoming severely distressed by the storm, his heart rate spiking. This is unprecedented. The small child was, in her own way, performing an emergency medical intervention, using her unique calm to steady a powerful predator on the verge of panic. Kael, his hands shaking, somehow managed to raise his camera. He captured breathtaking, terrifying photos of the intimate, dangerous interaction. Each click of the shutter was a testament to the surreal reality unfolding before them. A small child and a powerful predator, both strangely at peace amidst the violent chaos of the savannah. The images would either be evidence of a miracle or a catastrophic failure of protocol. Said Ali, through the enclosure's intercom, tried to guide Zawadi out, his voice hoarse with urgency. But Zawadi, with a serene self-possession that defied her age, merely signaled them to wait. After a few more quiet moments, she slowly, deliberately, began to extract herself from the enclosure, never turning her back on the lion. Simba Mbingu watched her every move, his massive head following her with an almost gentle gaze without a hint of aggression. The heavy access door clicked shut behind her, sealing her out, sealing the inexplicable moment within. Mwende rushed forward, embracing Zawadi in a fierce, trembling hug, a whirlwind of furious relief and rapid Samburu scolding. Kyle, watching the scene, felt a deep, agonizing internal conflict tear at him. This was a story, yes, but it was also a child's life and a deeper mystery. Zawadi, unfazed by the storm or the adult's terror, simply explained her actions with a logic that was both simple and profound. The storm frightened him, she said, her voice soft but clear. His heart was beating too fast. The medicine wouldn't work if he was afraid. Her words hung in the air, a chilling indictment of conventional science's limits and a testament to her unique gift. Later, Cale meticulously reviewed his photographs. The raw intimacy was undeniable, but what struck him most was an unprecedented level of organized intelligence emanating from Simba Mbingu towards Zawadi. It transcended known animal behavior, hinting at a connection so deep it defied scientific explanation. The lion wasn't merely tolerating her, he was responding, almost communicating on a profound primal level. Still reeling from the events, Cale went back to the breached fence, driven by a nagging suspicion. Sifting through the splintered wood of the fallen tree, he found it, a small, unusual tracking device subtly embedded deep within the bark. It was not part of the center's standard equipment, nor did it resemble any known poaching technology. This device pointed to a level of sophistication far beyond mere poachers. It suggested deliberate, controlled chaos, a calculated breach breach, perhaps even a coordinated strike to manipulate events, not just happenstance. The storm, the tree, the unlocked door, Zawadi's inexplicable presence, it all felt like pieces of a meticulously planned puzzle. Said Ali, his face still pale, pulled Zawadi close. "You must never do that again, Zawadi," he admonished, his voice filled with an almost paternal fear. "Promise me." It was too dangerous. Zawadi looked up at him, her eyes calm and ancient. "He was afraid," she repeated softly, her conviction unwavering. Kyle faced an agonizing decision. Exposing Zawadi's dangerous actions and the center's undeniable lapse in security would be his journalistic duty, but it would also jeopardize her, risk permanent damage to the reserve's reputation, and potentially bury evidence of a larger, more sinister plot. The tracking device he now held in his hand was a tangible link to something far darker. The choice was clear: keep silent about the protocol breach to protect Zawadi, but investigate the tracking device on his own, knowing the immense personal risk and the profound implications of what he might uncover. If you thought the first few parts were intense, buckle up, because things are about to get truly terrifying. The veil of normalcy has been ripped away, and what lies beneath is a conspiracy that threatens not just the wild, but innocent lives. Don't forget to like this video, share it with anyone who needs to hear this shocking truth, and subscribe to stay tuned for the next crucial installment as we unravel this terrifying web. Chebet returned to the rehabilitation center, her face grim with exhaustion and the lingering stress of the elephant emergency. Her initial fury at Zawadi's breach of protocol was palpable, a storm cloud mirroring the one that had just passed. Yet, when Kyle presented his photographs, the breathtaking, terrifying images of Zawadi in the enclosure with Simba and Bingu, her anger gave way to a profound, almost awestruck silence. The unprecedented calm of the magnificent lion, even amidst the tempest, was undeniable proof of Zawadi's extraordinary connection. Just as the immediate crisis subsided, news arrived. The poachers involved in the elephant incident, the same individuals now linked to Simba and Bingu's shooting, had been captured. Authorities lauded the swift action, linking them to a larger trafficking network. The official story was that Simba and Bingu had been targeted for his distinctiveness and his research collar, a valuable prize for trophy hunters seeking to illegally export exotic wildlife. A neat, tidy explanation. But Kyle, remembering the unnervingly precise bullet wound, the strange, anomalous biodata readings from Simba's collar, and the sophisticated tracking device he'd found embedded in the fallen tree, knew it was a lie. A deeper, meticulously crafted cover-up. This wasn't about ivory or trophies. It was about something far more sinister. He confronted Chebet in the quiet solitude of her office, laying out his evidence: the dramatic, impossible photos, the irregular, non-lethal trajectory of the bullet, and finally, the illicit tracking device. The small metallic object lay on her desk, cold and incriminating. "This isn't from the reserve, is it?" Kyle asked, his voice low, holding the device. "And that bullet, it wasn't meant to kill, was it? Not outright." Chebet picked up the device, her fingers tracing its smooth, unfamiliar contours. Her gaze was grave, her usual scientific objectivity replaced by a weary resignation. She met Kale's eyes, and then, with a heavy sigh, she confessed her own mounting suspicions. "No, Kale," she confirmed, her voice barely a whisper. "It was meant to immobilize, to extract." She paused, her eyes distant, as if seeing beyond the walls of the clinic. Biogenesis Nexus, they're watching, they're always watching. The name hung in the air, cold and predatory. Biogenesis Nexus, a powerful, shadowy biomedical corporation known for pushing the boundaries of genetic research. Chebet explained their unusual interest in Simba and Bingu's unique genetic markers. They believed Simba's rare lineage possessed exceptional resilience, advanced healing properties, perhaps even a heightened intelligence, traits invaluable for their research. Targeted for what? Bioweapon research, enhanced pharmaceutical development, or something even more terrifying. She didn't know for certain, but the implications were chilling. The poachers, she concluded, were likely a diversion, a proxy for Biogenesis Nexus. Their aim wasn't crude trophy hunting, but to either capture Simba and Bingu alive or, failing that, to retrieve his valuable biosamples, perhaps even through the sophisticated data streaming from his research collar. The storm, the fallen tree, the unlocked gate, It had all been orchestrated, a calculated attempt to gain access. Controlled chaos. A new agonizing realization dawned on Kale and Dr. Chebet. The danger extended far beyond Simba Mbingu. Zawadi, whose profound, almost symbiotic connection to the lion made her unique, whose intuitive understanding of him transcended science, now became a key target. She was a living bridge to Simba's unique biology, a potential asset in Biogenesis Nexus's cold, calculating game. Protecting her became their new agonizing mission, a burden heavier than any Kael had ever faced. In the days that followed, even as Simba Mbingu made a remarkable recovery, Kael observed a new phenomenon. The lion demonstrated an enhanced situational awareness, an almost preternatural ability to sense unseen threats. His amber eyes would often track toward the distant perimeter, even when no one else perceived anything amiss, hinting at a deeper intelligence, a complex awareness of the organized network that now sought to exploit him. The game had just begun, and the stakes were terrifyingly high. The air crackled with a different kind of tension now. Dukente Chebet, a fierce advocate for the wild, channeled her fury into meticulous preparation for a high-stakes conservation conference. Her plan? To subtly expose Biogenesis Nexus's activities, using Kale's irrefutable photographic evidence and Zawadi's extraordinary story as the fulcrum. Simba Mbingu, a testament to resilience and the inexplicable, was finally ready for release. His wound, once a gaping horror, was now a powerful, jagged scar on his flank, a badge of survival. His miraculous recovery was hailed by the reserve as a triumph of integrated medicine, a blend of modern veterinary science and ancient wisdom. Just before the release, Kael made a final chilling discovery. Near Simba Mbingu's planned release point, cleverly camouflaged among the wildflowers, he found a faint, almost invisible biomarker spray. It shimmered under his specialized lens, a silent declaration of Biogenesis Nexus's continued, relentless surveillance and their malevolent intent. They were still watching, still waiting. At the conference, held under the disapproving glare of international conservation bodies and corporate delegates, Kael presented his breathtaking photographs. The room hushed as the dramatic image of Zawadi, her small hand on Simba Mbingu's massive head, appeared on the screen, a silent testimony to an impossible bond. Dr. Chebet followed, eloquently discussing the integrated treatment protocols that had saved Simba Mbingu, a masterclass in understatement. Then, with subtle, precise language, Dr. Chebet shifted. She began to reveal details about Simba Mbingu's unique genetic markers and the suspiciously orchestrated poaching incident, hinting at corporate espionage and unethical practices without explicitly naming Biogenesis Nexus. A ripple of unease spread through the corporate delegates. A polished, dismissive representative from Biogenesis Nexus rose, attempting to discredit their claims, painting them as sentimental conservationists indulging in fantastical stories. But Kael was ready. He projected irrefutable photographic evidence of the illicit tracking devices and biomarkers, undeniable proof of a sophisticated, targeted operation far beyond mere trophy hunting. The room erupted. Simba Mbingu's release ceremony, usually a joyous occasion, became a symbolic act of defiance. Under the watchful eyes of the international press and the lingering shadow of corporate malice, the majestic lion stepped out of his transport cage, his scarred flank catching the sun. He didn't bolt. He walked with measured power about 50 yards into the savannah. Then he paused. He turned, his gaze sweeping over the assembled humans, the rangers, the scientists, the journalists, before settling, profound and intelligent, on Zawadi's small figure. It was a silent acknowledgement, a deep understanding. Then, with a flick of his tail, he disappeared into the tall grass, not just as a lone animal reclaiming his territory, but as a sentinel, a guardian. Zawadi, now enrolled in a specialized education program nurtured by Dr. Chebet, articulated her newfound wisdom with a serene simplicity. "Sometimes the thing everyone thinks is dangerous just needs to be understood," she said, her words resonating with the quiet power of her unique gift. Dr. Chebet, her eyes blazing with righteous anger, addressed the Biogenesis Nexus representative directly, her voice cutting through the murmuring crowd. "Your research is unethical, and your incidents are meticulously orchestrated. We have the proof." Kyle, standing beside Zawadi, looked out at the vast expanse of the savannah. "He's not just a lion, is he?" he murmured, a quiet vow. "He's a guardian." Biogenesis Nexus was unmasked. Their unethical practices laid bare, but their influence was vast, their reach far-reaching. Kyle knew this was just the beginning. He committed to continue documenting, becoming a silent guardian against these corporate threats. He was a marked man now, but his final decision was clear: protect Zawadi and Simba Mbingu by keeping their unique connection documented and public, yet private in its most intimate details, securing their future. He would ensure their story echoed, a testament to the wild's enduring mystery and a chilling warning of humanity's unchecked ambition. The first gunshot cracked through the morning air like thunder. It was supposed to be the tragic end of Simba Mbingu, a magnificent lion, a statistic in the relentless war against poachers. In my 15 years as a wildlife photographer in Kenya's northern frontier, I'd witnessed countless such heartbreaks, always knowing the grim protocol. But then an abandoned girl, Zawadi, stepped forward, doing something incredible, something that challenged everything I understood about wildlife management. Her intuitive connection with Simba Mbingu, a bond beyond science, brought him back from the brink, his wound now a powerful scar, a testament to resilience. What began as a rescue mission quickly unraveled into a chilling conspiracy. The precision of the attack, the anomalous biodata, the hidden tracking devices, it all pointed to Biogenesis Nexus, a corporation seeking to exploit nature's deepest secrets. Simba Mbingu wasn't just a lion, he was a genetic marvel, and Zawadi, his quiet guardian. My camera became my weapon, exposing their unethical pursuit. Nothing in my career had prepared me for this fight, not just for a lion, but for the truth, for a child, and for the very soul of the wild. The battle against unseen forces has just begun, and I will keep documenting, because sometimes the greatest dangers hide in plain sight.